I want to talk a little bit today about essay exams and how we take them, why they matter or don't. So, the title of this talk is Essay Exams as an Academic Product: How to Design, Manufacture, and Sell Your Answer. So, you have an essay exam. And for the purposes of this talk, this essay exam could also be a timed impromptu writing. It could also be a piece of writing that you have to finish within a set amount of time or where you have a deadline. It's the kind of writing that you have to do because somebody is demanding you to do some writing and you've got to produce something on the spot. Sometimes some of the most aggravating writing is this writing where you've just got this set amount of time and you've got to produce something that makes you sound smart. It's very frustrating, it's high pressure, and sometimes it can be very high stakes. Essay exams can happen in a job application. They can happen in a graduate record examination, or even in a defense for your dissertation. They can happen in an English introduction to English course at a college. They happen all over the place. And that's not to even mention other impromptu kinds of writing experiences where you have to do something on the spot. So you have an essay exam. What do you do? Well, for the purposes of this talk, we're going to think mostly about timed essay exams. That kind of essay exam where you get a question or a prompt and you have to write a full essay within an hour, within 2 hours. Maybe it's also an essay question that you get within an exam that has multiple choice questions and short answer questions, and it's worth 20% of the overall exam, and you've got to write an essay, and you only have like 15 minutes to do it. Why do instructors give these exams? Well, there's many reasons that instructors might give these exams. I think actually the primary reason may be the one at the bottom of this bullet point list, because they don't know how else to assess your work. But many instructors will say they want to test your ability to accurately discuss course material. They want to assess your ability to apply course material. They want to think about whether you can think about course material. They want to as a checkpoint for your writing skills in a field of study. They want it as a checkpoint for your writing skills in college, or because they just don't have anything else to do in a test. I think a good question for you to ask when you have these kind of questions to answer in an exam where you have to produce a set amount of writing is, why do you take essay exams? Now, obviously, you take them because somebody told you to. But our internal motivations for doing these essay exams sometimes impact the ways that we feel stress or pressure within those exams. So think about it. Why do you take essay exams? To show what you know, to get a grade, to impress your professor, to test yourself in your ability, because you want to get a degree, because you want to get a job, because everything in the world seems to rely on this exam right here in this moment, or just because you didn't have anything better to do that day. And thinking about our motivations for taking these exams and the purposes, what we're trying to get out of them, it's important to remember what essay exams are not. They are not actually an accurate indicator of your ability. They're not an accurate indicator of knowledge. They're not an accurate indicator of self-worth. And frankly, essay exams are not a place for brilliant ideas or brilliant writing. They are this momentary thing that happens at one moment and one time within 1 hour or within 15 minutes. And as such, all they are really testing is, what was your ability to write something in that moment? You could be the best writer in the history of the world, but every writer has bad moments. Or you could be the worst writer in the history of the world, but every writer has great moments. An essay exam tests nothing except for that moment. Now, maybe it does allow an instructor to decide how do you do under pressure, or maybe it allows an instructor to assess, did you really know this material, or can you produce something? But for the most part, I think essay exams are not a valid indicator of who you are as a student, as a person, as a writer. And yet, still, instructors give them. That leads us into thinking about essay exams a little bit differently. Maybe essay exams, or the writing that you do for an essay exam, is a product. It is something you're creating for a consumer, the consumer here being the instructor or the person who's giving you the task, and you're trying to get them to buy something. Here's my logic for essay exams. Essays for exams are products. Professors are consumers who either buy or reject your product. And the products are must be produced with an efficient process for material gain. That's the way products and consumerism works. You make money when you produce a product if you do it efficiently, and if you don't spend a whole lot of capital to build that product. So, in this case, an essay that you write for an essay exam is you're constructing this thing in this artificial setting to sell it to somebody else, to your professor. I got a note here. Teachers who want to inspire students to find their voice and their identity through writing get pretty cringy when we talk about writing as a product. I get pretty cringy when we talk about writing as a product. But in the case of an essay exam, because I don't have a whole lot of respect for that exercise, I gotta say, in this case, writing is a product. If it's a product, then we got to talk about its production. And I'm a professor at Henry Ford College. It's named after Henry Ford, the innovator of the assembly line. And because we're going to talk about products, it's worth talking about the assembly line of producing a product. And here's something to keep in mind here. Henry Ford was a genius when it came to production. He was not necessarily a genius when it came to creating the best cars of all time. In fact, Henry Ford did not care about whether or not every single car that ran off the line worked. What he cared about is making sure he got a lot of cars running off the line. If we are going to think about the essay that you create for an essay exam as a product, then you can't necessarily worry that you're writing about the most brilliant ideas at the most brilliant time. You just got to worry about getting the product off the line. And so you have to think about the individual parts of what you have to get done. You got to think about, what is the question that you're being asked? How much time do you have to think about that question? How do you create a thesis statement to fill an essay in response to that question? How much time should you create developing an outline? How much time and effort do you put into the drafting? Are you leaving time open to read your product to make sure it works? Do you have time to go back and make little changes to fix it a little bit? And then, how do you get it in on time? The essay in an essay exam is an assembled product that you have to watch over as you produce it to make sure you get it done in time, and to make sure that the product can roll off the line and be sold. As a writer myself, I loved essay exams because I could BS my way through them and I never had to study that hard. But I also hated them because I always want to write something beautiful and brilliant. I want people to be impressed with my writing, and essay exams don't really allow for that. You just have to get yourself in the mind of producing this product. So, what's a good standard for a product for an essay exam? Well, here we'll talk about the 5-paragraph essay. Now, again, as a professor who cares about writing and voice and ideas and power, I hate the 5-paragraph essay. When I get an essay from a student in a 5-paragraph essay form, that is an essay they've been working on for a month, it frustrates me because it's the 5 paragraph essay does not allow for creative thinking. It does not allow for design. It doesn't allow you to think about your audience. It is just this format where you come up with 3 things to talk about and then you're in and out. It's a pretty simplistic, pretty voice silencing type of essay. But of course, that's what I believe the in-class essay exam is as well. So here's a production standard for the 5 paragraph essay, because if what we're going to do is not focus so much on what it is we're creating, but how we create it, then it's maybe okay to write a 5 paragraph essay in that situation. Just in case you don't know, and of course, who doesn't know, because you get taught this in 6th grade, and you get it taught it in 8th grade, and then you get taught it again in 10th grade, and then another time in 10th grade where another teacher will teach it to you, because we get taught this over and over and over. Here's the 5 paragraph essay. Introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, and then the conclusion. The 5 paragraph essay is set up obviously on 5 paragraphs. Each paragraph is 5 sentences, 3 to 5 sentences. You have an introduction that establishes the topic and the thesis. You have 3 body paragraphs that are covered in the thesis, and then your conclusion. The key production element here for your 5 paragraph essay is the thesis statement. So here's some ideas for how to take a thesis question, a question in an essay exam, and turn it into a 5 paragraph essay thesis. First, turn the question into the thesis. Flip it around. What are the causes of the Iraq War? Well, then you flip that around for your thesis. The causes of the Iraq War are: what's the best flavor of bubble gum? The best flavor of bubble gum is. Turn the question into the thesis, and then use this equation. X is Y because A, B, and C. The causes of the Iraq War are 1, A, B, and C. Make choices when you create this based on your audience and context. And now's a good time for a caveat. If you have a professor who absolutely told you do not write 5 paragraph essays, and you write a 5 paragraph essay, this plan doesn't work. This element doesn't work. You've got to change that to meet the audience. And if your professor is wanting to know about your creative voice and your beauty of your voice, I mean, I'm not sure why that kind of professor would be giving you an essay exam in the first place, but if they are, then maybe think a little bit more about how you change this format up to make it sound more creative. Still, X is Y because A, B, and C is a pretty good model to remember when you set out to plan for an essay exam. Let's look at an example question. Explain why Thanos decided to use the Infinity Gauntlet to erase half of all life in the universe. Okay, maybe you're not a geek. I am. So here's my question. Why did Thanos use the Infinity Gauntlet to erase half of all life in the universe? Well, the first thing you want to do is spend some time understanding the question and then brainstorming. He's mean, he's a villain, because the world was overpopulated. He wanted to ease suffering, he wanted to show he was powerful, because he could, to defeat the Avengers. Other life forms are meaningless to him. Do some brainstorming initially. Of course, it really depends on how much time you have for this. And then find 3 of the responses that make sense. How do you know they make sense? Well, they're things you talked about in class. They were in your readings. They are things your instructor seems to care about. Or maybe they're a creative idea that you came up with that you know will impress your instructor. Come up with 3 ideas and then create your thesis. Here's the thesis. Thanos erased half of life because he fell in love with his own power. He thought he could ease suffering, and because other life forms meant nothing to him. X is Y because of A, B, and C. Thanos erased is X. Half of life because is Y. He fell in love with his own power. A, he thought he could ease suffering. B, and because other life forms meant nothing to him. C. Snap. This plan gives you a really quick organization for your essay so that you can then Move into outlining. You write an introduction with the thesis. You write your first point, point A, about power, your point B about suffering, point C about others meaning nothing, and then a conclusion that wraps up by saying Thanos was a bad dude. This plan, this outline, allows you to jump into your essay writing with the assurance that you're answering that question, that you've got a model for doing it, and getting through the stress of setting up your essay so that you can meet the terms of that product development. And keep in mind, you don't need poetry. You don't need to write the best thing of all time. You need to write an essay that your professor will buy. Writing matters. Your voice matters. Your ideas matter. Essay exams are a lie, but many professors use them. And in fact, I use them occasionally because I teach Introduction to College Writing, and I know that in college you're going to have to write essay exams. But essay exams only matter in the moment. They're just something you have to get through to show that you can do it, to produce a product that your professor will buy. So, what I suggest is that you do it, you produce it, do it efficiently, do it effectively, do it with your brain, but then get out so that you can get back to the real writing that matters. The writing that matters and means something to you. Don't get hung up on the essay exam. Walk into it with a production plan. Fulfill that production plan and get out and enjoy your life. Thanks for listening.